Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, your retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to pick up and continue Tamora Pierce's circle. I didn't say it's a quartet. She has two separate quartets and then a third kind of random grouping of books here. So we're going to be looking at the Circle Opens quartet. If you have not seen the Circle of Magic quartet that I filmed back in September, check that out. Otherwise, this is not going to make much sense. These books do, even though they're two separate quartets, you do have to read the Circle Opens first, because that's where you get a feel of the world and these specific characters. So this is the first book in the Circle Opens quartet. This is Magic Steps. This is probably my favorite book of Tamora Pierce's, partially because I have an obsession with dancing. I enjoy ballet. I'll say that. I danced a little bit in some adult beginners classes before I had a kid. And then I had a kid. And I haven't been able to get back to it because COVID happened, and it's difficult to do that type of exercise when you have a child. And that's part of what revolves around this book. That's why it's called Magic Steps. So in this story, this is the last books. The four main characters were no older than about 11 or 12. Now they've jumped. In this book, Sandri is 16, and they've all scattered, essentially. Sandri is still home in Emmeline because that's where her uncle is. And her friends have chosen to travel with their teachers to different places. And Lark remained home, and then Sandri did as well. And in this story, what's happened is she's living with her uncle now. Her uncle he's a workaholic and a duke and doesn't know how to delegate, and he had a heart attack. And she saved his life. Because if you paid attention to the previous Circle of Magic quartet, Sandri, though a noble, is a thread mage, only she weaves magic in and of itself. And she was able to save his life by essentially holding on to his life force. In fact, they talk about it a little bit in the beginning of this book, how the servants are slightly afraid of her after they tried to prevent her from seeing her uncle, and she made the wall hangings come alive and kind of along with their own clothing, and she terrified the living daylights out of them, and essentially, do not get in my way. When I want to get to my uncle, I so please, and I will do it, and get out of my way, or else she will make you. So she is 16 years old. She's not, if you remember, she's not a snobby noble. She was just, her uncle may have been dying and she was ticked off. And they were in her, and people were trying to treat her like a skimping, innocent, fragile, noble girl, which she's not. She's survived multiple plagues. She's seen fires and pirates, and she's seen the world more than most nobles, sheltered girls her age. So she is not a skimping little damsel, not to mention. Thread mage, really, really powerful one. So in this book, it starts with her getting up early to go riding, and she's going to go check on some things, and she finds her uncle awake when he should be resting, and she scolds him. It's like, you are barely just allowed to do some work. You need to let your people do their jobs. And he loves her. And what's more, he trusts her. So he's like, okay. And they go off writing. Now the other part, you start with the other main character in this story, which is Pasco. Pasco works for a family called Hurriers. Now they're cops. That's what they do. That's what his family is from. He's from generations of generations. And he's about 11 or 12 here. I think he's 12. He might be 14. I know he's just a tad bit older than she was. But he's obsessed with dancing. He's very much obsessed with dancing. And he gets up early in the morning to go help a friend of his from a fisher family, because they've seen him dance, and I'm guessing some of them suspect to dance this net dance to help bring in fish. So Sondri and her uncle come across this. They see him, and she sees magic. So all of her friends, they see magic, and she sees him practicing magic, only she realizes he does not know. And essentially, she tries to get him to talk to her, and he won't. So she kind of tags him, and she's like, to go find him. And she's like, if something bad, basically she says, here's the deal. I have to hurt, because the messenger comes to tell her uncle that he needs to go see something. There's been a murder. And they said, like, I cannot stay here. So it's like, meet me back here when the ships come in. And if those ships are full of fish, better than they've had in a while, you need to talk to me because you have magic. And he does not believe her. He is very skittish. He's like, no. I have to pretty much become a hurrier. And that's what his family does. And he can't be doing silly dancing. And yeah, she rolls her eyes. It's like, people are very stupid. They're very, very stupid. Because magic is going to do what magic is going to do. And then she leaves to catch up with her uncle. And there's been a murder of, I'm trying to remember what exactly are these people. They're very, very, very wealthy merchant family. I think they've cornered, I think, the Myrrh market, which, if you're not aware, is a very expensive, even real life. It's a resin. Jesus stories, yeah, it was expensive. Frankincense and myrrh. Yeah, it's an expensive incense used. I think it's a resin. So it's tree sap essentially. And yes, even in this world, it's extremely expensive. And so the owner of one of the heads of this family has been decapitated, and the entire family has been murdered, and there's no evidence of a break-in, and it's kind of gruesome, and people are concerned. And so the Duke comes upon it. He's looking at things. She shows up. They try to prevent her from coming in. She gets mad. She has 2 guards with her, and they're like, you don't want to piss her off. You don't. And so it's like, fine. The head investigator, who happens to be Pasco's uncle, lets her in, tries to convince her. She pretty much tells him to back off. Like, I'm not dealing with this. You're a nuisance. Get out of my way. And she's like, my uncle is just recovering from a heart attack. People seem to forget this. I'm here to remind them. Yeah, she's having none of it. She comes in, sees the murder. Her uncle at first tries to prevent her, and then he realizes, no, never mind. Forgot who I was talking to. Not going to mess with my niece here. And this is his great niece. And she tells them, because they have mages there, it's like basically he had spells everywhere. And none of his alert spells were triggered. So it's like, no, he did not let anybody in. And then, of course, their mages, the Hurrier mages, show up. And she has to leave with her uncle because she has to look after him. And it's like, as much as she wants to stay and watch them, she has to leave because she sees something. She sees some sort of dark film going on. And when she has to leave, she catches up with Pasco. The ships are full of fish, more than they've seen in a while, and he runs away because he's freaked out. It's like, oh crap. And he doesn't understand it, and he's scared. And she's bemused, and her guards are like, yeah, you grew up, you spent the last several years in a magic temple. The rest of us are kind of terrified of some of this stuff. But what happens the next day is kind of funny. Pasco accidentally, he's being picked on by some of his cousins during battle class, when I think their grandfather is trying to teach them how to do baton work. And he kind of dances them into the air. Because I think the grandfather leaves, his cousins are on to attack him, and he does a couple steps that he'd seen by some of the people in the town, and he gets his friends stuck in midair. Or gets his cousins stuck in midair. So it's like, uh-oh. So he runs to Sondri. She's like, okay, one, calm down, two, tell me. And yeah, so she actually comes back with him and has to talk him through getting them down, and then basically talk to his family. It's like, he needs to be trained. He has magic. If it gets out of control, it's a problem. And they're not entirely happy about this because, again, he's supposed to go into the family business. And instead, they don't really understand what dancing is. And she makes the grandfather see, it's like, his magic is going to do whatever path it's chosen, he's going to do it. And of course, his uncle's very much against this, and she can't stand the uncle. You don't ever see them, they do converse, but they're never in the same room with Pasco. It's never the three of them. So she kind of snaps at him occasionally. So that's part of this. There's two things going on. There's Sandri trying to teach Pasco dances, and then there's these murders going on because somehow this family is being murdered practically in plain sight, and nobody can figure it out. And what they discover, because there's another murder, I think, shortly after she leaves Pasco's family home, and she starts talking with the Hurrier Mage, and it's stuff called unmagic. And she takes some of it to Winding Circle Temple, as well as one talking to Lark. Like, she's basically told, you have to teach him. She gets like, I don't know how to teach him. She's like, you have to teach him because there's nobody else. And that's essentially the price you pay for your teaching. And her teacher is part of the council and kind of lets her know that. As much as Lark is gentle and kind, she's like, you're 16 now. You're pretty much an adult. You have to take on those responsibilities. So she has to teach him. So she has to teach him meditation. She also goes to her uncle, and her, Lark tells her, but I think I might have help for you. So while she's dealing with this unmagic, and then they bring up the unmagic, they're like, oh crap. So what this stuff is the antithesis of magic. It's nothing. And people who use it typically go insane. And you also have the back and forth of, you know, what's going on. You have these two people who are from another family whose family had been murdered in a different country, and they're out for revenge. They had this young boy who's a drug addict, and I don't think he can walk. And he uses the unmagic, and he's able to help them basically disappear from one place to another, and they're able to kill. But this unmagic is solely basically it's not only the antithesis of magic, it's the antithesis of life. It is nothing in and of itself. So it's solely leeching away. And I think at least the husband of the couple is on the drug as well. So they're all kind of slowly going insane as they commit these murders. And so you see them, they're desperately, and then they see that they're kind of being tracked to an extent. So, and there's a couple murders going on. And so that is what's going on, along with what Sandri does is Lark brings her a friend of hers who's a renowned dancer to teach Pasco how to dance. Because Sandri doesn't know how, really. She knows basic country dances. She can teach him to meditate, but this other teacher at this dance school that just opened up can teach him how to dance, and they can work together to weave his spells, to weave what he can do. And she also has to fight the fact that his uncle is irritated and saying it's like his magic will do whatever we tell it to do. We'll send him to Lightsbridge. And Sandri's like, no, it doesn't work with this type of magic. The type he has, the type I have, it picks the path that it can be used in. It's not traditional academic magic. It's a magic that runs through things like green magic and plants and metals, and in this case, dance, which is just kind of funny. So he's working, part of it is she's teaching him, she's dealing with this, like, I think he's about 12, 13, because I know she comments that he is older than she was when she had to learn this. She gets frustrated with him trying to learn meditation. She's like, I was 11 years old. You are 14. You need to learn this. And so she's struggling to teach at 16 and deal with this unmagic and working with this Hurrier mage, who is unfortunately also killed in this. He's killed by the unmagic users. Sandri cleans up the mess of unmagic, and what happens at the end of this is with the Winding Circle Temple, is she has to weave a net with this stuff. And Pasco has to dance the net dance in order to draw them in. Her uncle is pissed. I believe he threatens to throw the Winding Circle Mage Council into his harbor because he's been, it's like, you're using my niece and a 14-year-old boy to catch these killers. It's like, yeah, and they're like, if there was any other way, we'd do it, but there's not. And they are ultra careful. And you have to see Sandri weave this stuff. And it does kind of go wrong, because Pasco's supposed to dance it and leave, and he doesn't, and he gets caught because he's a stupid 14-year-old boy. And she essentially has to tear them apart. She has to unweave her net and spin them to pieces. So she literally has to shred these people. Even though most of them had completely consumed by unmagic and very, very drugged and very, very crazy, she still has to kill 3 people. And that's kind of how it ends. And she recovers. Pasco moves. Sandri realizes she's going to be permanently living with her uncle, because she was kind of there temporarily. And Pasco moves to live at the dance school. And that's kind of how the book ends. So the focus of this is very much in all 4 of these books is the finishing of the coming of age. These formerly young kids are coming into their adult positions, as well as gaining students of their own. So each one of them does get a student throughout this. But I love this one. It's kind of funny to watch Pasco be forced to learn to dance and actually work, because he did it for fun. He would goof off. And when he gets this famous teacher who he's in awe of, she's this tiny little woman who, I believe he says she has hands like a smith's, and forces him to work and stretch his muscles, and he becomes completely exhausted. The other thing this woman does is start falling in love with the Duke. Yeah, they start a relationship with Sandri's uncle. So that's kind of touched upon as well. So that's the basis of this book. It's a mixture of a murder mystery as well as Sandri coming into her own and becoming a teacher and pretty much taking her place in adulthood. She finishes that story in the Will of the Empress, which is actually kind of the conclusion of this series, which was, if you read the introduction, Tamora Pierce was kind of pressured by her fans to bring her characters back together. So she does that. I will cover that book at some point. But this is very much, again, Sandri is becoming an adult. She has to start doing things on her own. She has a student. You have this young boy who's older than she was, but less experienced in a sense. And he's finding his own family and what he's been taught in order to take control of his magic. And again, he's there. He sees these people torn apart. And one of the things that he learns, and this is what he tells his grandfather, it's like, that boy mage was being used. If I don't learn how to control my magic and what it can do, I'm a tool, and that's it. I want to be in control of my power and what I can do. So that's the thing that he learns. Sandri learns that yes, she's an adult, and yes, she can in fact teach, and she learns the power of her own magic and how deadly things can be. But again, and then just essentially she becomes an adult. So, and that's the point of this story. You have the young boy who's learning, I need to be able to control my magic so I don't become somebody else's tool, and Sandri learning that she is a teacher. She is able to command her magic, and she is now an adult, even though Gwensley's 16, but this is Middle Ages. This is later Middle Ages, I would say, because no knights in shining armor here. That's Tortall, Tamora Pierce's Tortall series. This is still Middle Ages, but it's further on in the Middle Ages where you had the larger cities. And you still have the kingdoms, but it's dealing in magic and it's dealing in, I think, regular armies and not knights any longer. So that's this book. This is my favorite next to possibly Wild Magic, which is an entirely different book, which is Tamora Pierce's Tortall series. That's the first book that I read. But this is my favorite of all of them, including that one. So that's it for this book review. Check out the rest of them. Like I said, if you're seeing this and you haven't watched my previous 3 videos about the Circle of Magic Quartet, check those out. This will make a tad bit more sense because you know a little bit more about Sandri and where the heck we're at here, and the other characters that I'll bring up in the next 3 books. I also do a variety of other book reviews. October was packed if you want to check it out. I did all of Harry Potter starting in September. Done a variety of film reviews. I do some kids travel stuff, mostly advice on what you do with travel with small children, in this case my toddler, as well as some secular or aka non-religious homeschooling videos. And I have a bunch more coming. This month we're doing some Native American stuff because it's Thanksgiving, as well as some fun stuff like these books, because I happen to love them and wanted to cover them besides the Native American stuff, which, while important, can also be a little heady. So that's what's going on in November. I'm doing a bunch of fun stuff during Christmas time, and I'm covering some food stuff come January and a whole bunch more planned. So if you like what you see, like and subscribe and check out my stuff.